All right, want to start today by saying thank you to the three newest Patreon subscribers, Dave Fro, Edwin Galka. I think I said your last name right. If I mispronounced it, I'm sorry, bud. And Tiffany Young Kershaw. I want to thank all three of you immeasurably for supporting the show, keeping it going and growing. If you are interested in supporting the show, check out patreon.com/bigtruth. Simple as that. If you are in the custom motorcycle world or just even the stock motorcycle world and you need some parts, you want some work done, check out Chop Ahead over at chopahead.com. It's a brick and mortar motorcycle shop, but also we have an online store where we got swag and parts. And if there's anything you need that you don't see on there, you can just always give us a call or shoot us an email. And you do that right off the website, chopahead.com, spelt in the most masshole of ways, CHOPPAHEAD. And like I said, we're a full service shop. Whether you need an oil change or a full custom motorcycle built, we do all of it, everything in between, motor work, everything. So check us out, chopahead.com, 13 County Road, East Freetown, Massachusetts. And you can always give us a call, 508-995-6764. Now, the guest I got tonight, super interesting. I'm going to give you some very some information that's going to like change the way you see things, change your perspective on things, and crazy stuff that you know that's hidden in plain sight. And he's going to bring some things to light for you to check out. Now, with that said, everything here is informational and educational. Well, not educational. Well, kind of educational, but for entertainment purposes. Don't go jumping into anything without fully understanding it, doing your own research, and really being aware of what you're getting yourself into. And with that said, without further ado, let's jump into tonight's episode right now.
We have a liftoff.
Yes, we have liftoff. I want to thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Big Truth Podcast. And today I'm stoked to have Brandon Joe Williams with me, who is going to blow your fucking mind. I'm just going to put it simple like that. He's going to talk to you about something some of you might have heard about, and some of you, this is going to be the first time hearing it, and you're going to go on a roller coaster. We were just kind of talking about that before we started recording, but you're going to go on an emotional roller coaster because your mind's going to be blown, and you're going to be, there's no way this is true, and then there's going to be some facts that back things up, and then you're going to come to some realizations. But before we even get into that, let me just announce Brandon and welcome you on the show, man. How you doing?
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
No problem. And you're an author. You're a common law lawyer. You have a coalition, and the crux of your work here is to get people unplugged from what we call the matrix, or like out of the slave state. Can you tell people a little bit about what you do, like a nutshell? I want to get into your history and stuff like that, but just to kind of give a teaser of where we're going with this, like, what is the crux of your work here?
Yeah. So in a nutshell, basically, I did a lot of research and I figured out kind of like a lot of how the world actually works in a legal sense, right? So you have two different, there's actually, to get kind of deep, but yet also like right out the gate, there's actually two versions of you in the law, right? So if you look up the definition of the word person, the definition of the word person includes natural person, corporation, association, trust, partnership, right? So what happens is that the government actually opens up what's called a public corporation of your name when you're born. And what nobody realizes is there's actually two different persons at play. There's you as the natural person, right, which is the legal term, yep. And then there's you, and then there's your name in all capital letters, which is called the public corporation, or the Latin term for it is called the ens legis, right? And basically, the way it works is that the government is a corporation, which I can actually talk about where that comes from in the United States Code later on in the show, but basically, the only way that the corporation can deal with you because it's dealing with you in a corporate atmosphere is through some sort of business activity, right? So what happens is everyone is a business owner, and you actually do own a business, and you're essentially the lawyer or the CEO or however you want to consider it of that business. And the problem is that all courts are dealing with that business, and it's all just a commercial activity. That's why they use bonds and stuff like that. So everything in the whole world essentially is a commercial activity having to do with your public corporation. And the thing is people just don't understand how that works. And what I do is I teach. There's a lot of information that says, you have to fight against this. Oh, you have to defend against this. Oh, it's a slave state. Oh, this and that. But when you realize how it really works, it's actually very, very simple, right? All police interaction, all government interaction, all bills are all just commercial activity between your public corporation and that business. It's a business to business transaction. All you are is basically just a lawyer on behalf of that public corporation. And when you realize how it all works and you realize how you're actually bringing all these bonds into existence, you're actually bringing all of these tickets into existence from the police, and you actually realize that you're the one in control as to how the contracts of those tickets or bills are actually written, you can actually take control and you can actually rewrite all of the contracts associated with, let's say, a speeding ticket or a bill that you might get from the credit card company, or even like a court case or any of those things. You can actually rewrite the contract of those things, and you can actually make them discharge off themselves. You can actually make police officers have to pay you the money of the speeding ticket they just manufactured.
And that's bananas. And I definitely want to get into how all this works. And I know, I've read some stuff in the past or have been around people or conversations about things like sovereign citizenship and stuff like that. Is what you have researched, is it similar to that, or is it something different?
No, it's so the word sovereign means king or independent nation or foreign government, or there's a lot of different terms for it.
Yeah.
The term citizen means someone who is essentially like a willing participant in some sort of like municipal club, basically, yeah. Right? So, normally I do a lot of video. I don't do a ton of. Oh, actually, I do a lot of audio shows, but not so many recently. So, if you go into Google and you type in 28 space USC space 3002. The first number represents the title of the United States Code. So the United States Code is divided into titles, which are like sections. It's really simple, right? So Title 28 of the United States Code, Section 3002, and then you're going to scroll down to subsection 15, and I'm just doing this all off of memory because I have all this memorized. Subsection 15 states United States means, and then definition subsection 15A says a federal corporation, right? So it's no secret. I know a lot of it's coming out now in the media, and a lot of it's coming out now in a lot of the conservative groups and stuff like that. But this is old news. This is not anything new. It's new to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But this is the government was actually incorporated in 1871. I've actually seen recent evidence that it could have possibly been incorporated even prior to that. But as far as I can tell, right now. 1871, the Organic Act of 1871, the reconstruction of the government after the Civil War is when we went through a massive transformation. Even the word person, which I mentioned earlier, that includes corporations, trusts, partnerships, even that word was redefined around that same time period. So a lot changed. The slave state as we know it, a lot of the changes that occurred that created that slave state happened right after the 14th Amendment, actually, during the Reconstruction after the Civil War. Okay, that time period is where a lot of these shifts happened, and it was the preparing of the soil that allowed things like the Federal Reserve Act and a lot of these things in the Patriot Act and like all the things that you've seen over the past 100 years. The end of the Civil War and the passing of the 14th Amendment, or the supposed passing of the 14th Amendment, is actually where a lot of the the preparation for a lot of these things began, actually, right?
So
And
just to clarify, so because like I know this might be like new content or new concepts for some listeners. So and let me see if I got it right. So prior to the 14th Amendment, the United States existed like as the United States of America, which was a government, and people were people. But then after that, the United States ceased from being the United States of America government as we knew it to the United States as a corporate entity. And then you being born, you're born as, like you said, as a natural person, but also as a corporate entity, as that's part of this corporation, the United States. So like you as a corporate entity are part of the corporate entity of the United States. Is that kind of how it works?
So there's two different entities actually in law. There's two different persons, literally, right?
Yeah.
One person is you as the natural person, and the other person is the public corporation. So you actually operate as two different persons in law, right? And then just to clarify my previous point, 28 U.S.C. 3002, talking about the definition of the United States means a federal corporation. If you want to find out where that federal corporation is located, you're going to look inside of a different body of law called the Uniform Commercial Code. You're going to look in what's called UCC 9-307. That 9 signifies Article 9, which is just like the same thing. It's just a section of the Uniform Commercial Code. The USC, they call the different sections titles. In the UCC, they call the different section articles. So it's Article 9, Section 307. You're going to scroll down to subsection H, and you're going to see right there, again, I'm going off of just pure memorization, location of United States, and then below that, it's going to say the United States is located in the District of Columbia. So what is United States? The United States is a federal corporation that's located only and exclusively in the District of Columbia, right? So you can imagine to yourself, as we covered earlier, the word citizen means some sort of municipal, volunteer or municipal officer or employee. United States means a federal corporation located only and exclusively in the District of Columbia. The District of Columbia is not a part of the 50 independent nation states of the United States of America. So that we can get into the definition in more detail of what a U.S. citizen is, but we've pretty much already figured it out. A U.S. citizen is a municipal officer or employee that has voluntarily worked for compensation or not for compensation for a federal corporation that is located outside of the United States of America in a foreign corporate zone called United States, which is located only and exclusively inside the District of Columbia. There are actually Supreme Court cases where they covered the fact that the only absolute right that a United States citizen has is to residence within the territorial boundaries of the District of Columbia, meaning you don't live in the United States of America if you are a U.S. citizen. You live in a completely foreign corporate zone called United States, which is a corporation, a private foreign corporation that has absolutely nothing to do with the 50 independent states of the Union. And you are essentially an employee or officer, a volunteer employee or officer of that foreign corporation. Thus, you basically, the way the law looks at it, the way the government looks at it is you have voluntarily waived and dismissed and gotten rid of and thrown your entire American nationalism into the trash can.
That is fucking bananas. Now, how like, but in obviously a lot of this podcast, we're going to talk about what that means and what the ramifications of that is and what it means for the average person. And, obviously you're working how to kind of get out of that. But how did you come across this? Like, what made you come down this, area of research? Like, what led you to this point? What got you even interested in this and going down this path to look into this?
I had taken over a landscaping company that I had gotten for free here in Southern California. And there's a local, like a payroll government organization called the Employment Development Department. And they basically trespassed onto one of my job sites and started interrogating some of my staff and determined entirely falsely and entirely based off of absolutely zero evidence that my staff was illegals or they weren't paying payroll taxes or some kind of goofiness. And they decided they wanted to cook up an entirely fictitious $60,000 bill after having sent me multiple requests for all sorts of evidence and all sorts of things, thinking that I'm sort of subordinate or some sort of slave and associated with the state, which I don't have any contract with. And so that basically turned into a research project because I had a couple of really close friends working in this landscaping company, and I took it over. It was kind of a distressed company when I got it for free. It's kind of a mess. It was a crazy mess, actually. So I had a very strong vested interest in making sure this company actually made it. And I started doing some research and reading some books. And it took me a while. It took about 6 months of working and focused research and that kind of thing. And then eventually I had learned what I needed to do to handle the situation with the Employment Development Department. But in the meanwhile, obviously during that time, about 5,000 additional doors had been opened during that time of that research. And I found it so fascinating that I just kept going, essentially. And that's just I've just kind of kept going ever since, and just been one door after the next.
So it wasn't like you were someone that like studied law and that this was the area you went into. You just came across it almost by necessity and just found it and kind of started kicking down doors and getting further and further down this rabbit hole.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's just like most people, who encounter my material, they become obsessed with it. I mean, it's, I consider it to be very natural. I mean, this is, this information and this subject is so wildly fascinating. I don't think I've thought about much of anything else since probably September of 2021. I mean, literally all day long, every day. I can't even, I dream this stuff.
Sure.
I sleep this stuff. It's just, I can't, I couldn't imagine not being obsessed with this information, to be honest with you.
Well, it's mind blowing. And so going back into this, like, after the 14th Amendment and when this started really going, like, what do you think? Like,
so
what are the intentions behind it? Like, why did things get restructured like that? And is there a little like mini cabal that's like kind of like I know there's probably no way to tell who's kind of behind it, but like why would things get restructured in this way? Because it seems very un-American.
Yeah, so after the 14th Amendment, obviously the 13th and the 14th Amendment had a lot to do with slavery, right? But also the government was being restructured after the Civil War. They were all fucked up. Things were bad, right? So what happened was that what people don't realize is slavery became illegal, but probably a majority of Americans at that time, definition of Americans being anyone located in any of the states, right?
Yeah.
They weren't thrilled about this whole thing. Even if they were like for the ending of slavery, they were definitely not for the fact of slaves having all the same rights as they had, right? So the 14th Amendment, essentially what happened was that they talk about essentially two different types of citizenship, sort of, right? And then what happened was that a little bit after that, in 1871, there was a series of Supreme Court cases called the slaughterhouse cases, right? And you can look those up online. Anyone can look those up online. The slaughterhouse cases, one of the big aspects of that particular series of cases is they wanted to interpret what was meant by the 14th Amendment. And essentially what the Supreme Court decided and what they thought of and what they focused on was the fact that, even though people did want to end slavery, they didn't want the slaves to have the same rights as the people who lived in any of the 50 states. They just didn't want them to be full-blown indentured servitude anymore, right? So what they did is they created an entirely new type of citizenship called a federal citizen, right? Which later on got redefined to U.S. citizen, right? So basically the federal citizen is basically where all the slaves were released into which was basically a special type of citizenship that didn't have anywhere close to the amount of freedoms that what they called at that time a state citizen. So at that time, in 1871, there was a federal citizen and a state citizen. A federal citizen lived in the corporate zone, the foreign corporate zone, or was an officer or employee of the foreign corporate zone. A state citizen was somebody who actually lived in one of the 50 independent nation states of the Union, or I'm not even sure if there was 50 at that time. I'm pretty sure there was, but anyways, you get the idea.
Yeah.
So what happened was over the years, those two terms, federal citizen and state citizen, changed their names. The federal citizen became U.S. citizen, and the state citizen became national, the word national. So nowadays, circa 2023, we have two different terms. We have the term national, or what you would consider non-citizen national, which is often used. There's a whole bunch of different terms, but to keep it simple, we'll say national or non-citizen national, right? And then the other term is the United States citizen. It's the same terms from 1871. It's just different names on those terms, right? So a U.S. citizen is somebody who is a volunteer employee or officer of the foreign government. A U.S. citizen is the same thing as a released slave from 1871. The state citizen, or somebody who is actually a true, real blood American, would be a state citizen, right? That's now called a national, or if you want to be more specific, a non-citizen national, right? So you have two different terms. You have U.S. citizen and you have non-citizen national. And for anyone who may not believe me, you can look at what's called an I-9 form, which is an employment eligibility verification form, which most people do sign and fill out when they get a new job. At any company that's, even bigger than very, very small, you'll see box 1 on an I-9 form says a citizen of the United States. Box 2 says a non-citizen national of the United States. And there are special tax forms for both.
Yeah, and it's weird the language that's used, because it's not. It's like, I don't know if it's intentional or unintentionally confusing, because you know, as someone that just grew up in the States, like oh yeah, I'm a U.S. citizen, but you would never.
It's all done on purpose to confuse.
Yeah, it's like you would never think to call yourself a national, whatever. Like they use words where it makes it sound like you come from like Switzerland or something, like, or some other country. And but
that's right.
But it's like, no, you're just someone from the state rather than someone who's from the U.S. Corporation. It's bananas and bewildering.
The corporation is legally corporate. I'm sorry, the corporation is legally foreign. So Washington, D.C., even though it's physically located kind of like within a landlocked borders of our country, that was all part of the plan too, because the Washington, D.C. is legally a completely different country.
Okay.
And that country has its own states, quote unquote, right? They're called U.S. territories. For example, Guam, Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, American Samoa.
Yeah.
So these places are basically the states underneath the main superstate called Washington, D.C. It's a completely separate country with substates. The United States of America is the 50 independent nation states of the United States of America, and has nothing to do with Guam, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, American Samoa, or Washington, D.C. These are two entirely separate worlds. The 50 independent nation states of the United States of America are all unincorporated, and they're based off of common law, and they're all actually technically colonies of Great Britain. Whereas United States means the superstate or the main state or the head state, which would be Washington, D.C., and then all of the sub-states of United States, which would be Guam, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, American Samoa, etc. It's two entirely separate worlds with two entirely separate bodies of law, two entire separate histories, and two entirely separate operational capacities. One is incorporated, which means based off of commerce and commercial activity and business, and the other one is not.
Which is, none of this is found in any, American civics book ever, like in a high school or in public school ever,
Yeah, they don't want you to know about this information because the thing is that it's very, very easy to change your situation and to fill out a new passport and to clean all this up and start operating as though you are a business owner and to basically take control of all this. There's actually a way you can get what's called a state citizen passport, right? And in my free contract killer course, I teach you how to fill out the DS11 passport application form. There's actually many different types of passport, right? When you get the correct passport, which is a passport that states that you actually are essentially a state citizen or a national, and you live in the United States of America and you're not incorporated or living in the foreign incorporated zone, you regain all of your rights and you actually get listed as do not detain, and you get, 50 state concealed carry permit. You can do whatever you want, because the thing is that what people don't realize is there's two entirely different universes at play here. For example, you have the sheriff's office, and then you have the police. The police is on the corporate side, the U.S. citizen side, the incorporated side, the Washington, D.C. plus family side. The sheriff's office is on the common law side, the colony of Great Britain side, the 50 independent nation side, the non-incorporated side. And you can keep going, and you can notice that there's almost two different words, two different bodies of law, two different of everything. There's two of everything because there's two different worlds that are meshed together here. And the way that it works is the sheriff's office actually deals with true, real Americans. They can go on either side of the fence, actually. The police only have jurisdiction over the U.S. citizens or the commercial side of the fence, right?
Okay.
So as you start to research this more and more and more and more, you realize that, for example, even like a driver's license, definition of the word driver is a person who is operating a commercial motor vehicle. The definition of the word motor vehicle from 18 U.S.C. 31 subsection A6 actually is very, very clear that it's basically some sort of contrivance that is operated through mechanical power, that is operated specifically and only on the highways for transporting persons, property, or cargo for some sort of fee, rate, charge, or other consideration. So, for example, an Uber driver or an Uber Eats delivery guy, something like that.
Sure.
The definition of the term motor vehicle is only and exclusively a vehicle that's being operated at all times, exclusively and only transporting goods, people, or whatever in exchange for some sort of fee or rate or charge. So, for example, let's say you have somebody who's a plumber and they're driving around and they transport their own tools to and from various locations where they may be performing services. That vehicle, technically in law, would not be classified as a motor vehicle because the things inside of that vehicle are not being transported exclusively and particularly for some sort of fee, rate, or charge. Yes, the plumber is transporting his tools, but he's not being paid to transport those tools from point A to point B. So thus, that vehicle actually legally would not be classified as a motor vehicle, nor would that vehicle be classified as something that's being used for commercial purposes, which also has its own definition in the same section of 18 U.S.C. 31 subsection A10. So you have to ask yourself, you start to go down these rabbit holes and you realize that everything that we're being tricked into is all commercial. And the thing is that everything that we're being tricked into and all of the contracts that we're being tricked into, they're so obviously commercial and they're so clearly commercial, they're very, very, very easy to get out of.
And so,
for example, in the term of cars, right?
One second, just to pause you. And I'm just apologizing to my listeners here. I know I'm only doing audio. This one should definitely be video because I'm sure you have like things to pull up. But, you know, everyone take a second, pause it right here, and go get your pens and papers so you can stop writing this stuff down. And I'll put as much as I can in the show notes as well at the end. So, like, you know, we'll have some of the main stuff there and you know, obviously Brandon Joe's information and, you know, where you can find more on his website. But write some of this stuff down. Be taking notes, people. You know what I mean? This is important stuff. All right. So sorry, man. Sorry to sideline you here. Go ahead.
No, it's all good. It's all good. So everyone goes to the Department of Motor Vehicles or the Bureau of Motor Vehicles or whatever. But what no one realizes, and the cops pull you over and they say, in order to be, you know, in order to operate a motor vehicle on highways, you in the state of blah, 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 you need a driver's license, blah, 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 blah. And there's a lot of sovereign citizens type people, which I don't necessarily like that much because they're usually very combative, which I'm not.
Okay.
Running around saying, you know, I'm not driving, I'm traveling and this kind of thing. Well, you know, the sad thing is that no one ever stops and says, where does that actually come from? Where are you actually getting that information from? And the thing is that it's very easy to find. You're going to find it in Title 49 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Section 390.5T. So 49 space CFR space 390.5T as in Tom. It's very, very easy. You're going to use a search function. You're going to look through there. They're going to go down to subsection. Well, it's not a subsection. Actually, it's not numbered. It's just a bunch of definitions. And it says right here, driver means any person who operates any commercial motor vehicle. So the thing is that a driver's license is a license to operate a commercial motor vehicle on the highways. A motor vehicle is defined as a carriage that is, I mean, I can pull it up right here. 18 U.S.C. 31, subsection A6. 18 U.S.C. 31. And then we're going to go to Cornell University. We're going to go down to A6. Can you hear me?
Yep.
So the term motor vehicle means every description of carriage or other contrivance propelled or drawn by mechanical power and used for commercial purposes on the highway in the transportation of passengers and property or cargo. And if you scroll down to subsection A10 in that same area, you have they even went even farther than that, and they defined the term used for commercial purposes. They say here the term used for commercial purposes means the carriage of persons or property for any fare, fee, rate, charge, or other consideration, or directly or indirectly in connection with any business or other undertaking intended for profit. So you have to realize that they gave you a public corporation, and everything that you're doing in your life, they tie you into some sort of commercial activity. So that's how they get jurisdiction over you. You aren't driving, you aren't operating a private vehicle. When you start to research how this all works is, when a vehicle is first purchased, there's actually an original document. And you can look all this information up online for yourself. It's very easy to find. It's called a manufacturer certificate of origin. It's also called a manufacturer statement of origin, otherwise known as an MCO or MSO.
Yep.
These documents basically are the original true private ownership documents of the vehicle, right? Now what happens is you buy a brand new vehicle and they say, oh, Mr. Blank, Mr. Williams, would you like us to handle title and registration for you? Why, yes, I would, for $220. Now, what they do is they send a parcel of information. Inside that parcel contains the MCO or the MSO of the vehicle. What the state is going to give you in exchange for that MSO or MCO, they're going to give you a pink slip, otherwise known as a certificate of title. The legal term certificate means copy. So what they're doing is they're taking ownership of the vehicle in a superior way, superior title, which is the MCO and the MSO. And basically what you're doing is you're paying money to enter into some sort of fucked up commercial trust where the state becomes the trustee and you become the beneficiary, and you're basically operating in this entirely like foreign, like fucked up commercial world where the DMV actually takes superior ownership over the vehicle, and the police are essentially policing that of which is owned by the state.
Now, is like are other things like that, like mortgages? Does that work almost the same way?
It's all the same. Yes, all the same shit. So mortgages are exactly the same thing. When people pay their property taxes to the county is a private for-profit corporation listed on Dun and Bradstreet. The county is a private for-profit corporation, which is a sub-corporation of the government. The county of Los Angeles is physically located in the District of Columbia. The county holds superior title over your home through a quitclaim or a guarantor deed or whatever the hell. I forget the name of it sometimes. And what's happening is that you're paying, basically the way it works is you're saying, I donate this property to the state in exchange for the state overlooking my property. The way that the government looks at, let's say, for example, permits, the county actually holds superior title. You're essentially just a beneficiary. You don't really own the property. Okay. The way it works is that the way they look at it is by making you submit to them to get permits, they consider that they're basically giving you a service. They're saying, look, you're basically pretty dumb, and you've basically given us your property, and like you don't really understand things, and like you're liable to go and dig in the ground and dig up some electrical line and kill yourself, right? So what you're going to do is now you're going to come to us, you're going to ask us for what you need, and then we're going to help you through that process. For example, the idea of getting permits to dig in the ground to build a PDU or whatever it's called, the little houses they build now on a lot of properties here in Los Angeles. So what they're going to do is they're going to say, no, you can't dig here. You can only dig here. It can only be this high because of earthquakes. And the way they look at it is they're providing a service to you. You see, It's a commercial service. It's all commercial, because what they're doing is they're saying, if we didn't help you with all this, you could die. You could, it may not work out. It may fall over. It may do this. It may do that. Now, most people don't look at it that way. They look at it as, this is annoying. I don't want to get permits. So the thing is that there's actually a type of title that no one's heard about, that title companies pretend doesn't exist. It does exist. There's an entire area of the government called the Bureau of Land Management, the BLM. And all they do is they hold and they protect and they issue certified copies of the original land patents that were signed by the President of the United States. And what happens is you can actually go through what's called a special land patent process where you get certified copies of that original land patent and you claim that the property is yours and the area of the property, and you actually take that original presidential land patent and you basically do a summary sheet of all the different guarantor and quitclaim deeds, and you say that all these are gone. This summary is gone, and this is now a land patent, and we're going all the way back to the original presidential land patent. Once that process is completed, you are now the county cannot issue you a fee simple title, but it's called a fee simple title, but it's confusing to people because they're like, we don't get anything from the government or the state. The reason why is because it's not a government or a state related thing that they can give you anything about. It's like going to a child for permission to pay your taxes. You wouldn't do that. It doesn't make any sense. The government is not high enough on the scale to issue you what's called a fee simple title. What you're doing is you're yanking all of the interest, the legal interest, from the corporation called County of Los Angeles. And what you're doing is you're essentially legally making that property a separate country. It's called a fee simple title. You can literally look it up. on governmental websites, on the Bureau of Land Management, they talk about this fee simple title. But if you try to talk to a title company or these big mortgage companies, they'll say that you're full of shit. A lot of them will get actually super emotional and totally freak out. They'll say it's not real. It's all fucking sovereign citizen bullshit and blah, blah, blah. There are government agencies where they deal with this and they specialize in this. This is very, very, very real information. The choice to gift your property to the state to create a commercial transaction and then pay real estate taxes and have to get permits is considered an entirely voluntary activity. The 13th and the 14th Amendment has made involuntary servitude illegal. It's very, very easy to handle. You say, hey, this commercial activity, this whole thing that you guys think that we're fucking doing right now, I no longer find this to be beneficial. This contract is over. And if they say, oh, no, it's not, blah, 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 you say, hey, are you attempting or are you implying that I am involved in some sort of involuntary servitude contract right now? And you just shut your mouth. You will freak them the fuck out because they can go to prison for up to 30 years if they say yes to that situation.
Now, does it work the same? Like, say you owned business property, because that is commercial, like, but not commercial in the sense that we've been talking about. Like, does that operate under the same, or is there something different with that? Like, if you own business property.
No, commercial. Even if it is a commercial property, meaning that a lot of people think that the definition of commercial means used primarily for business-related activities. In the law, it's not. That's not always the definition. For example, a lot of people think that because they drive as a plumber and they carry their tools around, it's a commercial vehicle. That's not true at all. It's only a commercial vehicle if they're being paid to transport those tools from point A to point B.
Yeah.
If you're transporting your own tools from point A to point B in order to do services at point A or at point B, and the service itself has nothing to do with the actual transportation activity itself, it's not actually classified as a commercial motor vehicle, and it actually wouldn't even be a motor vehicle at all. Like, for example, in California, that would actually be called an automobile, which is a completely different term, which comes from the California Vehicle Code, Section 465. And you can actually look it up online. You just type in California Vehicle Code definition. The first thing that'll come up, it'll say automobile. It'll say, I can actually pull it up right here. California Vehicle Code definitions. And the second one listed is the term commercial vehicle, which is defined as is a vehicle which is used or maintained for the transportation of persons for hire, compensation, or profit, or design, use, or maintained primarily for the transportation of property. So it would have to be primarily for the transportation of property of which you are being compensated to transport. Very, very easy to get around. For example, I have a landscaping company, right? I haul shit to and from people's properties all the time with my things. In the contract, the client signs to the fact that they don't own anything in my trucks. If it's in my truck, I own it. They don't care. They're like, hey, we don't care as long as the dirt gets there, as long as the plants get there. That one little line in all of my contracts removes all commercial activity from all of my transportation. I don't have to have a driver's license for any of my people. They can drive around without driver's license. I don't need license plates. I don't need any of that shit. I don't need anything to operate my automobiles. And then here we have the definition of the word automobile is a passenger vehicle that does not transport persons for hire. This includes station wagons, sedans, vans, and sport utility vehicles. So you can see here, what's the difference? The difference is, are you transporting something for hire?
Yes.
I'm not transporting dirt or plants or rocks for my client. My client is not paying me $30 or $80 to transport this dirt from their home to the landfill or whatever, okay? When I pick up that dirt or when I'm dropping off those plants during transport, I own all that shit. So the way that works is I get a completely different type of thing called a private motor carrier DOT number. I don't go to the Department of Motor Vehicles for anything. Fuck them. I'm not in commerce. The police have no jurisdiction over any of my trucks. I don't have to pay any registration. I got no smog, nothing. I go to the Department of Transportation, which is the senior organization above the Department of Motor Vehicles. It's up the chain. And I get, a lot of people have heard DOT number, right? But people don't realize there's two different types of DOT numbers. There's a for-profit motor carrier and there's a private motor carrier. You can go onto Google right now and you can type in definition of private motor carrier. And it's going to say, what is a private motor carrier from the FMCSA, which is the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. A private motor carrier transports its own cargo, usually as a part of a business that produces, uses, sells, and or buys the cargo that is being hauled. A private motor carrier transports its own goods and is required to have a U.S. DOT number, but does not need operating authority. The private motor carrier DOT number is completely free. It does not require smog. It does not require registration sticker. It does not require license plates. And it does not require a driver's license.
Practical question here, not to cut you off, but now that's awesome. But what kind of, like, how often are you or your guys getting pulled over, and what kind of bullshit do you got to deal with when you get pulled over? Because they're like, you got no plates. What the fuck's up?
No, we got plates. We make them ourselves. We make custom plates. We can make them in any state. You can make it look like a Florida plate. You can make it look like a South Dakota plate, and you just put US DOT on there, or you put like private US DOT, and then boom, the numbers are right across the center. A lot of times you can't even tell the difference between that and a normal license plate. We like to be low key. We don't want to get fucking pulled over.
Yeah. But if you do, what do you got to, like, because I'm sure that most police aren't, especially a patrol, like the highway patrol and stuff like that. I'm sure they're not familiar with this stuff, or maybe they are and they just don't let it be known. But
no, they're not. No one's familiar with any of this information. Sometimes you can find sheriffs that have been around for a long time. They know some of this information.
Yeah.
Besides that, you won't find anyone that knows anything about this information. Okay?
So what happens if you do get pulled over? Like, do you got to deal with a little?
It's real easy. It's real easy. So what we do in my movement with my people, we basically get the special passport. We get the state citizen or national passport, right?
Yeah.
And then what we do is we get, when you sign up on the DS11 form, a lot of people don't realize you can actually get a passport card. The passport card looks a lot like a driver's license, right? But it's non-commercial. The passport is non-commercial, right?
Okay.
So what we do is we actually get the passport card, and then we give the police the passport card. Now, the police can't do anything with a passport card or a passport because the passport is on the 50 unincorporated American nation state side, the sheriff's side. Only the sheriff can process anything that has to do with a passport, right? So what's going to happen is that if you research, there's actually a PDF file that I have on my state national resources page that basically explains that it's a diplomatic and consular immunity guide, right? And law enforcement is actually trained in basically how it works for foreign diplomats or foreign consulars, right? The way it works is, in the government's eyes, a state citizen or a national or a non-citizen national, these things all mean the same thing, is actually legally classified as a foreign diplomat.
Yeah.
So when you issue to the police your passport book or your passport card, what occurs in that moment is that most police don't know this. Some of them do. They have a 24-hour Department of State hotline that they can actually call, and you can actually find that phone number in the diplomat and consular immunity guide that I have available for free PDF format on my state national resources page. When they call that number, it's a very weird interaction. because I don't know exactly how it all works, but they basically give the person the passport number, and the person on the phone says, this guy, don't detain him, let him go immediately. And to my knowledge, that's the whole conversation. There's not a whole lot of communication that goes back and forth between the Department of State and the police officer. The police officer is actually trained already. I realized this because I was on a show with a guy who had been in Homeland Security for 20 years. And he told me, he's like, they're actually trained on how to deal with foreign consulars and diplomats who have diplomatic immunity. And they literally have a sentence that they say. They say, thank you, Mr. Williams, have a nice day, and they get the fuck away from you as quickly as possible. Now, the way that works is if you look in the diplomat and consular immunity guide for law enforcement, it says right in there, the police are trained that they are allowed to detain you until they can verify that what you've told them is true, right? So the way that we do it, the way that I teach it is you give them a passport card. You say, look, I'm more than happy to be detained until you can verify my identity, because the truth is anyone can say any bullshit about them being a fucking whatever, diplomat or whatever. You just say, I'm a foreign diplomat. This is my passport. I'm more than happy to be detained until you can verify my identity. It's that simple. They verify our identity. They bring back the passport card. And, a vast majority of the time they say, thank you, Mr. Williams. Have a nice day. Now, what's the difference between that and a bad interaction with the police? It's people who are unkind, who are weird, who don't roll their window down or whatever, or roll it down partially, who are combative, who are strange, who are acting in erratic behavior. These are the people who are going to have troubles with the police, right? So I always tell everybody the same thing. It's not a piece of plastic or a book that's going to give you what you want. It's operating as a foreign diplomat. You actually are legally becoming a foreign diplomat or consular. A state citizen or a non-citizen national is legally a foreign diplomat.
And it's like that wording is probably what gets people confused, because because it sounds like foreign, meaning like it sounds like you're from another country, even though you could be from down the street.
You are from another country, because the thing is that in the United States of America, so Virginia is legally a separate country from Washington, D.C. They're right next to each other.
Yeah. Or Maryland.
So someone who's living in Virginia is actually a foreign diplomat or consular to someone who is operating inside of Washington, D.C. They're right next to each other.
Yeah. Oh, no, I get what you're saying.
The problem is that almost everyone in Virginia is listed legally as though they live in the District of Columbia. That's the problem.
Yeah. Well, or Arizona for that matter, or any other state, right? Or
any other state. Basically, the way that the entire system is set up is everyone lives in the District of Columbia, and the police are operating in the District of Columbia. That's literally how everything's set up.
Yeah. So even though physically you might be in the state of Massachusetts and reside there, you're kind of just waiving that, but you're like technically you live in the Washington, D.C., even though you're not physically there.
Well, the rabbit hole gets even crazier. The rabbit hole gets even crazier because when you look at like all these contracts, like for example, your lease agreement and everything else, just like you said, the word resident, right? The word resident or the word residence, when you look up the legal definition, it means that you're physically located in a particular area. It's not actually your actual home. It's a temporary home, oftentimes for business-related purposes. Again, commercial, right?
Commercial, yeah.
The word for someone who actually lives in a location and it's not commercial, and you'll never see it on anything because it won't give the government any jurisdiction, is the word domicile. Same thing goes for guns. What's the word that you see everywhere, all over the place? What's the ATF? What's the F stand for? Firearms. The Second Amendment doesn't say a fucking thing about firearms. Not a fucking thing.
Yeah.
Firearms are held by U.S. citizens. Arms are held by non-citizen nationals. Arms are protected by the Second Amendment, not firearms. The firearms are all under the ATF.
So like in a state like Massachusetts, if you became a national, because every state has different laws regarding firearms. Now, if you become a national, are you no longer subject to the laws of, like Massachusetts? You can't.
No, because you have the right to bear arms.
So you can have anything you want.
Oh yeah, you can build whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. You don't register it because when you register it, you're basically saying that it's existing in the District of Columbia, or you're registering it as a U.S. citizen, or you're registering it as an officer or employee of the federal government.
Okay.
You wouldn't register something unless you're a U.S. citizen and you're operating in the District of Columbia, because the District of Columbia has an entirely different set of rules.
Yeah.
The United States of America, you have the right to bear arms. So the thing is, if you have an arm and you are located in one of the 50 independent nation states, the foreign corporation, that's like going and registering your gun in France.
Yeah, it makes no sense. Yeah.
If you wouldn't go and register your gun in France, why the flying fuck are you going and registering your gun in the District of Columbia? It's got nothing to do with anything. Oh, and by the way, one important thing, just to like take everyone's mind that's already been melted into fucking dust and like really fucking annihilate everybody. State of California is a subcorporation of United States. State of California is physically located in the District of Columbia and is listed on Dun & Bradstreet as a business.
Yeah.
California Republic and State of California are in two entirely different locations. California Republic was the original name for the location called California. State of California is a false incorporated subcorporation of the United States, which is located in the incorporated zone and has nothing to do with anything. And the only way you can register to vote is by stating under penalty of perjury that you live in that area of the corporate zone called State of California, which again places you in the District of Columbia.
It's wild. And now every state is similar, or is there any states that have...
Every single state. State of Montana, state of South Dakota. I was on a podcast the other day with someone in Tennessee. Do you know the original name of the state of Tennessee?
No.
Southwest Territory.
And
that's probably because at the time when they landed, they had all the little tiny little places like your New Hampshire, your Massachusetts, and it was like Tennessee was like way far away from all that. It was the southwest of all of that, so they called it the Southwest Territory. So there's nothing stopping you. There's nothing stopping you from writing Southwest Territory on your fucking documents. There's nothing stopping you from crossing out State of Tennessee and writing unincorporated Southwest Territory. There's nothing stopping you. There's nothing stopping you from doing that.
Yeah. Other than people don't know that that's something that you can do.
People don't know.
Now,
when you sign a document under penalty of perjury that states that you live in the state of Tennessee, you're being tricked. That's Washington, D.C. You're signing that you live. Not only are you signing that you live in Washington, D.C., you're actually signing that you live in Washington, D.C. 2 times. Because if you look on your voter registration, it also makes you verify that you're a U.S. citizen. So you're saying, not only am I saying I'm a U.S. citizen, which puts me in the District of Columbia, but I'm also saying I live in the state of Tennessee or state of California, which puts me in the District of Columbia again. And that's the way it really works. And the way that it works is, and you want to know what's really crazy is, it's all based off of the definition of the term naturalization from 8 U.S.C. 1101 subsection A23. People don't realize the term naturalization is literally like the key to everything. And I'll read it to you guys right here. So 8 U.S.C. 1101 subsection 23. This is how it all works. This is how all this works. So the term naturalization means the conferring of nationality of a state upon a person after birth by any means whatsoever.
Any means.
So what that means is, if you say that you're a U.S. citizen, you just naturalize into the District of Columbia. If you say you are a resident, which has a commercial undertone to it, to state of Tennessee, you just naturalized into the District of Columbia and admitted that you're probably involved in some sort of commercial activity, which just gets their dick fucking hard as hell. So the thing is that you are naturalizing into all of these things all the time, and you're naturalizing into these things under penalty of perjury. Now, perjury can only exist under a willful lie. You didn't realize that you were lying in terms of your naturalization into the District of Columbia, so you can't possibly be busted for perjury. But if you believe anything that I'm saying, or you look into it and you realize that this could possibly be realistic, once you actually realize and you are willful, you can no longer place any of this information on any documents, because then it would legally be classified as perjury, which is a felony. So the way it works is you are a non-citizen national. For example, I'm a non-citizen national, and I live in the unincorporated zone called California Republic. And if I see anything on any documentation that says anything else, you bet your ass I'm crossing it out, and I'm going to update it. And if they won't let me, I ain't signing the fucking thing.
Because then you could get in trouble for perjury.
Well, I can get in trouble for perjury, but also I'm not going to naturalize into the District of Columbia. I don't live there.
And then you'd be naturalized, and then you got to start it. Then it's the whole.
Now, the cool thing about naturalization is you can naturalize out just as easy and just as fast as you naturalize in. All you got to do is, what does it say? The term naturalization means the conferring of nationality of a state upon a person after birth by any means whatsoever. You get a piece of paper. You write a letter. Hey, I didn't realize that I was naturalizing into the District of Columbia. I don't live in the state of Tennessee. I'm not a U.S. citizen. Please update my records and remove all of my voter registration. Get it notarized, mail it in. You just naturalized. You just naturalized out of the District of Columbia back to the Southwest Territory.
Yeah, that's crazy. So
you just went from being a federal citizen to a state citizen. You went from being a non-American living in a foreign corporate zone on paper to an actual real American. You just regained all of your Second Amendment rights. You just regained all of your First Amendment rights. You just regained all of your Ninth Amendment rights, which no one talks about the Ninth Amendment, most badass fucking amendment ever. The Ninth Amendment basically says that just because there's not something listed here in the Constitution doesn't mean it's not a right. And if you basically essentially want to make absolutely anything you right, go for it. That's the Ninth Amendment. Most badass fucking amendment ever. So you say to yourself, you know, someone says to you, oh, the Second Amendment, you know, it gives you the right to, you say, oh, you know what? No problem. I'll give it to you. But I'm going to pull Ninth Amendment card, reverse your shit. And you know what? My Ninth Amendment says that I can carry around fucking machine guns in my back pocket, strapped to me with a badass fucking red leather belt. Fuck you. Ninth Amendment says I can't do that. They're fucked. Ninth Amendment gives you the right to do absolutely anything you want as long as you aren't hurting people.
Yeah. Now, I know the big thing that a lot of people I know go the sovereign route, but like which is what I was familiar with before our talk today, so that's why I only bring it up like that. But I know that's one of the things. The kind of the big elephant in the room is taxes. Now, how does that work with like becoming a national rather than being a citizen of the U.S. corporation?
So the District of Columbia only has jurisdiction over itself and its territories, which again we've already covered. Virgin Islands, Guam, Puerto Rico, American Samoa. I think I'm missing like one or two, but anyways, it's not someplace you've ever really heard of or been to, probably.
But real quick, are you fucked if you do, like, if you were born and bred and live in Washington D.C.? Are you fucked? Like, or can you get out of that?
No, you're not. You again, it's naturalization, right? So if you live in Washington D.C., I would recommend you move outside of Washington D.C. If you work in Washington D.C., just move right across the border to like West Virginia or Virginia or whatever.
Yeah, okay.
Like it's okay because it's based off of where you domicile, not where you residence.
True.
Where you domicile. I don't fucking work here. This is not a commercial fucking activity. You're not going to tell me that by paying rent, I'm in a commercial activity, because that's fucking bullshit. Because the thing is that rent, you would have to basically prove that the rent that was being paid was to like basically, it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. It has to be I'm not involved. I'm not being paid to live here. It's not like, okay, if I had an office space and I said, you can come here and work for me and pay me a little bit of rent and I'll let you live there too. Okay, that's rough. That's a commercial activity. That's going to be harder, really. But if you live in there and it's a personal fucking domicile and you're paying rent, it's not a fucking commercial activity, bro. Yeah. And anyone who says that it is fucking stupid and they're fucked up in the head. It's not fucking true. It's not fucking true. It's a domicile, right? In order for it to be a residence, there would have to be some kind of like very, very often primary commercial activity occurring there. And you would need to be paying money as part of some sort of like commercial transaction. Okay. So with that said, it's one of those things where you realize that there's two different worlds here. There's two entirely different worlds here. And the basic trick they're trying to do all the time is they're trying to trick you into willingly. So basically, the 13th and the 14th Amendment made involuntary servitude illegal. Voluntary servitude is completely legal. The tax code is based off of voluntary compliance. They say that very clearly. I believe it's like 26 CFR 601.602 says that there's a couple other places too. They say that the tax code is based off voluntary compliance. You can type that into the internet; it'll come right up. So basically the government cannot tell you what you can and cannot voluntarily go into. That's how the county thing works. That's how the real estate taxes work. That's how the driver's license works. It all works on, hey, we never involuntarily forced you into this. You came in and you paid and you signed all these documents of your own free will. Because involuntary servitude is completely illegal. Voluntary servitude is completely legal. The tax system, people are always like, well, why don't they just tell me how much I owe? Because that would be involuntary servitude. They can't do that. They can only do voluntary servitude. You tell them how much you owe. They have brainwashed us all to such a vast degree that not only we pay the shit, we tell them how much we owe. And then nobody thinks to themselves, like, for example, let's say you get subpoenaed or you get an audit. You have a Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. The Supreme Court has already talked about this. I have quotes on my website. They're offering you voluntary servitude. They're saying, would you like to voluntarily serve us by giving us documentation? Would you like to waive your Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination? And what you're doing is you're saying, sure, why not? That's what's actually happening in that moment.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court has already cleared this up entirely. You just say, guys, I have a Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. I'm not incriminating myself at all. Whatever you guys think, whatever you guys want, that's it's up to the prosecution. You're innocent until proven guilty. You're going to hand them all this information that you don't even need to hand them as for the Fifth Amendment? I don't think so.
Yeah.
And they can threaten you and they can do all sorts of bullshit and everything else. Just say, look, if you guys believe I'm doing some shit, I'm innocent until proven guilty. The burden of evidence falls on the prosecution, and I'm sure as fuck not waiving my Fifth Amendment right. So, hey, you guys want to go for it? Go for it. By all means, man. Fucking, yeah, I'll send you a fucking 6-pack of beer, bro. Go for it. It's really simple. It's really, really simple when you understand this. Plus, you have to realize non-citizen nationals are what's considered non-resident aliens. There's two different types of classification in taxation. There's a resident alien and a non-resident alien. They are referring to United States. The United States is defined as a federal corporation located only and exclusively in the District of Columbia. Someone who lives in the District of Columbia, a.k.a. somebody who is a U.S. citizen or lives in state of Tennessee or state of California, is by definition a resident alien. Somebody who does not live in any of those things, let's say you live in the Southwest Territory or the California Republic and you're a non-citizen national, you don't live in the United States, so you're a non-resident non-resident alien. A non-resident alien, as per 26 CFR 1.871-1, subsection, I believe, A1, going off memory, you don't have a tax liability. You only have a tax liability on money that you've made inside of the District of Columbia. But the way that they write it, and I can pull it up if you want me to read the actual text, they say that a non-resident alien individual may elect to be treated as a resident alien for purposes of determining their income tax liability. So the way it works is this. When you were 18 years old, you filled out your first W-9 form, and the W-9 says that you're a U.S. citizen or other U.S. person. That's from Section 3 of the certificate and verification form at the bottom of the form when you sign. When you sign that form and you mail it in, the way the IRS looks at it is, this guy just committed perjury. He doesn't live in the District of Columbia, but he signed it, so he does. We're going to do him a favor. We're going to say he elected to be treated as though he's a resident alien for purposes of determining his income tax liability. So basically, the way I look at it is you volunteered to be treated as though you live in the District of Columbia for the purposes of determining your income tax liability. There's a process in the Internal Revenue Service code, which a million people have done, all my people have done, I've done it, called a revocation of election. Again, involuntary servitude cannot fucking exist. It's voluntary. So just the way you volunteer to elect to be treated as a resident alien for the purposes of determining your income tax liability, you can revoke that election. When you revoke that election, you go back to being a non-resident alien. You still with me?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm following. It's just mind blowing, like that. You know,
it's the easiest thing in the world. You can take a piece of paper. You can take a fucking piece of paper, bro, with a pen. You don't even need to type this shit up. And you put at the top of it, affidavit for revocation of election. Below that, Brandon Joe Williams, have never lived in the District of Columbia. I've never been a resident alien. I've never been a U.S. citizen. I didn't know what the fuck I was signing. And I hereby revoke all elections. I hereby revoke all elections that I've ever made to be treated as a resident alien for purposes of determining my income tax liability, all the way back to the inception of the contract, which is probably when I was about 18 or 16 working at McDonald's.
Yeah.
You get that shit notarized. You fold it up, you make copies, and you send it certified or registered mail, and you make them sign for it at the IRS. Once they sign for it, they will process it. There is no denial process. It's considered an informational return. They just process it. There is no like, oh, we need to approve this. There is no, like, the IRS doesn't actually approve or disapprove anything, dude. All they do is they just operate off of the information that you send them. That's all they do. They're just an informational hub.
Yeah.
You say that you owe them $6,000. You only paid them $2,000. They say, where the fuck's my $4,000? They offer you a contract. They say, hey, we want to come audit you. AKA, we want to come and have you waive your Fifth Amendment rights and do all this other crazy shit. You accept that voluntary servitude contract. Involuntary servitude does not exist. People believe it exists, but it's just an illusion.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. It actually literally doesn't exist. The DMV, you don't need to do anything with the DMV, bro. You don't need a driver's license. You don't need any of that shit unless you're working for Uber or you're working for like a food delivery service or something like that. Then you need it. But besides that, and you only need it when you're driving for Uber. If I'm driving for Uber on Monday and I'm driving that same car by myself on Tuesday, on Monday, I'm carrying a fucking driver's license. On Tuesday, I ain't even going to have that fucking thing on. I'm driving with a passport.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
You're
nice.
operating in two different worlds.
Yeah.
It's two different worlds. On Monday, the police can pull me over and give me a ticket. On Tuesday, they can't.
bananas. Now, if someone wanted to get, going with this, like let me just go back to the IRS before we get into that. Have you, any of the people that you've known that have done this, has there been any pushback at all from IRS? Like, or do they just be like, all right, yep, it's all set?
No, dude, the IRS, bro, okay, working with like credit card companies and financial companies and like sometimes even the Department of State, but the Department of State's pretty easy to work with. It's a little more difficult. Not the Department of State. They're actually pretty easy. The credit card companies and stuff like that, a lot harder. Mortgage companies, really hard to work with. It is a sliding scale. The lowest point on that scale, meaning the easiest organization on the planet to deal with when you actually understand how all this shit works, is the Internal Revenue Service.
Wow. With
one fucking letter, you can get like $4 million in fucking tax liability just to vanish. They'll accept it. It's the easiest fucking thing in the world. They know all this information and they operate off of it like it's a fucking religion.
Yeah. Wow.
The IRS is slow, very, very slow, but they follow the rules, honestly, better than almost any other organization on the planet.
Now, does it get sticky? Like, say you own a business and that's where your income comes from, right? You own a business and you have employees and they're still citizens of the United States, or they're not, non-resident, nationals or whatever. How does that work? Like, cause you still collecting tax for them that, and then, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of different taxes in corporate tax. Like, you know what I mean? There's like unemployment tax, this tax, This is
pretty simple actually to explain this. So anything you get from the government is located in the District of Columbia and always will be located in the District of Columbia. The District of Columbia does not have the judicial power to issue anything inside of a foreign country.
Okay.
The 50 independent nation states of the United States of America are all foreign countries. The Washington D.C. has nothing to do with it. It's like asking me like, oh, I have a business in Italy. How does that work with France?
Okay.
That's basically what you just asked me. You don't realize you were asking me that, but that's essentially what you just asked me, right? Now, the answer to your question is you wouldn't go to France to get a corporation for Italy.
Oh, I understand that. I'm saying if you have employees though, like they've, you know what I mean? They haven't done this. You still have to collect.
Well,
tax.
listen, if you have a corporation and that corporation, the articles of incorporation were given to you by the government, that corporation is physically located in the District of Columbia.
Oh, I got you. All right. Yeah. So they win by default.
So what I'm saying is that so the better question is this: how do I create a business or group that is not located in the District of Columbia? That's a question I can actually answer. And the answer to that question is you would open a private irrevocable trust. A private irrevocable trust is a type of business activity, a very, very old, going back hundreds, if not thousands of years, based off the Bible and shit. And a grantor, which is the person who brings the trust into existence, is just someone like you or me, or someone listening to this podcast. It's got nothing to do with the government. It's got nothing to do with any government body. It's got nothing to do with any instrumentality of the government or arm of the government or foreign arm of the government. It's just like, I'm in France and I'm opening a trust or group activity or entity in France. I'm not going to Italy for anything.
Yeah.
And when you do that, there's literally sections of the United States Code where they talk about foreign trusts. And the only way they can get jurisdiction over the foreign trust is if the trustees are U.S. citizens. So it's two different prongs. The first prong is you have to be a non-citizen national, and the trust has to be private and irrevocable and have nothing to do with the government. When you hit both those boxes, the United States Code is very clear. The government has zero jurisdiction over your business activity. Now, that does not stop the government from offering you a contract into voluntary servitude. Yep. They can offer you whatever they want. They can send you letters to fucking literally insert a fucking eggplant up your ass and send them photos, or they're going to, they could do anything. They can do whatever they want. The thing is that you can simply deny those, and they don't have any jurisdiction for like a summons or something like that. And you think to yourself, and people always say this to me, "Oh, they're just not gonna follow it." No, this is like what people don't realize is these codes, these laws, they're not really laws; they're codes. The United States Code is not called United States Law Book.
Yeah.
It's called United States Code. What is the definition of the word code? It's policies for a particular group or activity. That's the definition of the word code. And that group or activity is the corporate zone called United States or District of Columbia. It's literally a giant annex building. The District of Columbia is like a giant fucking annex building. When you go inside of an annex building, they have their own codes as to how you're supposed to operate in that building. And they have private security there. And if you fuck around and don't do what they've requested you to do inside their building, the private security escorts you out, and the police that are outside are like, yeah, you didn't follow the rules of that particular code inside the annex building when you were inside the annex building, so you're fucking out, and we're in agreement with that. Get the fuck out.
Yeah.
The entire country of America operates as though it's one giant annex building called Washington, D.C.
Crazy. If someone what's the process though? Like where would someone start? Like if they is the first thing just well, you can say, like I know you've already kind of talked about some of this, but like if someone's like, dude, I'm ready to get started. Like, what are the steps? Like, because obviously someone might already have a regular passport, a regular driver's license, all this stuff. Like, how do they go about, getting the ball?
Yeah.
rolling?
So I have so on my website, which is hilarious. We haven't even talked about it yet. It's all self-deprecating humor. It's fucking hilarious. It's called onestupidfuck.com.
I love it. That's I was like, I'm talking to this dude. Like I was like, he rides motorcycles. He drives stick shift. You know what I mean? He goes wild. Like I'm like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
It's good. He's a good dude.
Hell yeah. Yeah. I grew up on a farm in Indiana. So like I grew up, that's all I did was three-wheelers, motorcycles. My first motorcycle was a 1971 Honda CL100 that was owned by my grandfather. And then he rode it like twice. And then he got attacked by a dog. And then he put it in his garage, and it was in the garage for 25 years. And then my dad and I rebuilt it and rejuvenated all the chrome and everything on the rims and everything. And then I was like 12 years old driving that thing around. And then now I just bought recently this year, I bought a 2023 Triumph Speed Triple 1200 RS.
Oh yeah.
And it's a fucking rocket ship. I love it.
Yeah, those are ridiculously fast, like retarded fast. Yeah.
But I love Harleys. I love it all, man. People are like, oh, that's sport bikes. And I like my bike because it's a lot more upright. It's a very, very upright hyper naked. So it's like super, super comfortable.
Yep. But
it will rip your tits clean off, right? Like I have an exhaust, but I have a tune on it too. So it's probably somewhere around like 200 horse, something like that. It's about 400 pounds, 200 horse.
Oh yeah.
And it's got a lot of torque. It's a 1200. So it's like, it doesn't rev out like an R6 to like 14,500 RPMs. It revs only like, I think it's like 12 or 12 and a half, but it's sort of like a stroker motor. It's sort of like, it produces a lot of torque. It's like a torquey ass. I mean, that thing will really like, it's just like nothing.
Mm. Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun. I love bikes. And then I have a Shelby GT500, a 2009 Shelby GT500 that I put a fucking huge supercharger on. I put a Kenny Bell 3.2 liter. So it's pushing like 800 horsepower. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's relatively light car too. With all that horsepower behind it.
Oh yeah, I mean it's stick shift. Obviously, they're all stick shift. It's 6-speed, the TR6060 from Tremec. And I did a coilovers on it, lowered it. I did a one-piece aluminum drive shaft Ford Racing. I did a McLeod 800 RST clutch on it. I did and then I did the 3.2 liter Kennebell supercharger, and then I did a tune from Kennebell. I actually met the guys in Kennebell because they're actually out here in Rancho Cucamonga, right by me. I went to the headquarters. I met like Mike. I met all the guys there. We had some troubles with the tune, so I had to go out there a couple times. But, oh man, when we got all the tune stuff worked out, holy shit, this thing just fucking tears, man. It's just so, the whole power band is just completely nuts.
It must be violent. It's like violence.
Oh, it's absolutely violent. Because I didn't put like huge, like bigger tires on it. It's got the stock rims.
Yeah.
And then I put Nitto G what is it, 555 G2, something like that. I forget. I put the Nitto tires on it. It hooks pretty good. It's not like the end of the world, but you know, it's like you have to actually get on it like in a linear fashion. You can't like give it to her because you're just gonna die immediately. You have to go into it kind of like linear, and it's cool because it just feels like it just never ends. It's such a, you start to give it a little bit, and you're like, oh shit, we're going like 1,000,000 miles an hour, oh shit, and you're still giving it to her, and you don't even hit the firewall, and you're like, I gotta back off because I'm going like 90 down this back road, you know what I mean? So it's it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, and I love all this shit. So you know, it's definitely my background, living on a farm and that kind of thing. But
sure, do you have a lot?
Yeah, my website is.
Once I was gonna say, do you have a lot of those like nice Southern California like canyon roads that are like crazy like around you, or?
Oh, dude, that's why I'm here. I live here. People are like, "Oh, you're from California. You're like the most fucking, you know, seemingly right leaning." I'm not really a right leaning person. I'm kind of like totally out of the political spectrum, obviously. But it's I used to be very right leaning. I was very focused on that, right? Yeah. Now I'm just kind of like out of it. I don't really care or whatever. I'm just kind of like whatever, you know. Yeah. But you can drive a motorcycle here year round, and you can go up through the canyons. You can do all this. And it's like I love it. I just love, and I don't have a tax liability, so I don't pay. People are like, oh, dude, you ask anybody who left California if you didn't have to pay any of the taxes, you didn't have to deal with any of the legal bullshit, you didn't need to deal with the EDD. Would you have stayed? Oh, you didn't have to do smog. Would you have stayed in California? And everyone, a lot of people, most people, especially if you can somehow get them out of the political space, and you can say like, if you just remove the politics and just like your personal experience of living in California and being there, because California's got everybody. It's not this whole illusion that everyone's fucking left. It's not really true. Everyone's here. You know, they've done things where it's like if California disconnected from the rest of the 50 states and became its own country, it's like the fifth most powerful economy on the planet. Everything is here. Everybody's here. There's a huge Republican base here. And I've had people tell me that some of the most active Republicans in the country are here in California. So it's all just a fucking illusion, just like everything else. Just like the idea that Gavin Newsom is the fucking governor of the state of California, which is a private for-profit corporation located only and exclusively in the District of Columbia, and only has jurisdiction over people who have signed up and naturalized as U.S. citizens.
Yep. It's crazy.
It's all an illusion.
Yeah. What I find funny about California is that it's like the hub of like the motorsports industry, but half the stuff that's made in California can't be sold in California, like, you know, exhausts and stuff, like, you know what I mean? It's like I have friends all the time like, hey, can you send me this carb? And I'm like, dude, it's like, isn't it like or this exhaust? I'm like, isn't that company like right down the road from you? They're like, yeah, they can't sell it to me. It's fucking bananas. Like, it's just, and
that all comes down to this whole corporate thing, because when you have a private motor carrier DOT number, you don't need a carb number.
Yeah.
The tune that's on my car and the tune that's on my bike, I don't even know if it's. But the thing is that my bike and my car are not classified as commercial motor vehicles.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
So they're classified as automobiles. The government doesn't have any jurisdiction to say what I can and can't do with my automobile. I don't carry a driver's license because I don't drive a commercial motor vehicle. I use a passport. So I get pulled over, let's say. I got a private motor carrier DOT number. I got a passport. Oh, your exhaust is illegal. No, it's not. There's two types of jurisdiction. There's person jurisdiction and there's subject matter jurisdiction. Person jurisdiction is, did they have jurisdiction over you as an individual human being? Subject matter jurisdiction is, did they have jurisdiction over the car? They have to prove both of those if you challenge them. Maybe not on the side of the road, but for sure in the courtroom. So I always say, you know, court is not held on the side of the road. Like that's like a stable point, right? So sometimes you got to kind of like take it in the ass a little bit, and then you can handle it all later in the court, right? Because they don't get it. They have no idea about any of this, right?
Sure, yeah.
So you got to think, how are they going to get person jurisdiction, and how are they going to get subject matter jurisdiction? They have to prove commercial activity for both individually. They have to prove that I myself am involved in a commercial activity to get personal jurisdiction, and they have to prove that the motor vehicle in question is also involved in a commercial activity. When you hand them a driver's license, you already gave them all the evidence they need for both of those.
Yeah. Yeah. But when you give them that passport,
you're handing over jurisdiction. You're literally handing these people jurisdiction all the time.
Yeah. It's wild, man. It's wild.
When you hand a police officer a driver's license, you're saying I'm involved in a commercial activity. You, Officer Jones, can fuck me right in the ass. Yeah. You can take me out of this car. You can bend me over my trunk and just rail the fuck out of me on camera.
Yeah, but if you have that passport, it's a different interaction.
Technically speaking, you don't even need that.
But it's better to have.
But the thing is that again, well, it comes down to what are you comfortable with?
Yeah.
What can you defend? How well do you know the information? If you know the information really, really well and you feel really, really comfortable, drive around with no license plate, no fucking passport. There's a lot of guys that do it. They're going to get pulled over.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And there's a lot of guys who handle that situation and they get told, okay. And they get left alone and they get told, taken away. And if they get pulled over and they're not very good at handling the situation and they're hot-headed and they go fucking ballistic, who knows? It's not going to be good. It's going to be ugly, but that's what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
I like things that keep me from getting accosted by the police, but still allow me to operate outside of the commercial realm. Things like a passport, things like a private motor carrier DOT number, things like an MCO or MSO. These are things that you get pulled over, they know what a DOT number is. They didn't know there's two types. They know what a passport is. They didn't realize that a passport gives you domestic travel ability, and as per 18 USC 1545, safe travel, I forget the name of it exactly. Do you realize that if you issue a passport to a police officer and the police officer unnecessarily detains you or fucks with you, do you realize that police officer can go to prison as per 18 USC 1545 up to 10 fucking years?
That's, yeah. What were you saying earlier?
18 USC 1545 is very, very clear. Safe. It's called safe something passport. And it says, like, if you fuck around with somebody who has a duly, it couldn't be like an expired passport. It would need to be like a real passport. But if you have a real passport and you give it to the guy and he fucks around, the police officer can go to prison for 10 years.
That's
now,
crazy.
Up to 10 years does not mean 10 years.
Yeah.
It means up to 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure they're not going to get 10 years. You know what I mean? But
I'm just saying, like, even in the United States Code, these things are taken extremely seriously. And when you actually study the codes and you take the time, you realize that the system that we have is you actually do have all your freedoms. You can, and we can go even farther. I know a lot of people on the right, they get upset about, like gay marriage, gays and trans and all this shit. Even that's all out the window. It's all fucking out the window. You can marry a fucking pole barn when you get outside of the commercial world. You can legally marry a pole barn. You can marry a goat. You can do whatever the fuck you want. You can do literally whatever the fuck you want. You can do anything. It's complete freedom. Like, for example, a marriage license. Think about it. Think about that. You want to know the fastest and easiest way to, like, tear open a fucking Republican thinking person's mind? Just say the words marriage license. You are going to the fucking plantation. You're going to Colonel Sanders in his white fucking vest with his little cane and his little pocket watch. And you're saying, oh, sir, may I please get married on your plantation? A fucking license to get fucking married? Are you fucking kidding me? Like, and people usually think, oh, God damn, he's right. Like, I never thought of it that way. A fucking marriage license, bro. That's enough to, like, I mean, that pisses me off, bro. Certain things piss me off. A lot of things don't. The marriage license pisses me off. You got to be fucking kidding me. A license? to get married? What the fuck? If that's not revolutionary fucking thing right there, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
Just that alone. So the thing is that a marriage license is a license for two U.S. citizens to get married in the District of Columbia. You don't need a fucking marriage license to get married. You got to be fucking kidding me with this marriage license bullshit. Plus, bro, sit down and read a marriage license. If anyone listening to this has ever signed a marriage license and you would like to cry for 48 hours in extreme despair, sit down and clear up the definitions of the words and understand what the fuck you signed. You're going to be more pissed off than you've probably ever been in your entire fucking life. And the thing is that you don't need a marriage license. All you do is you have your wedding, you have a little fucking witness book, people sign the witness book, you take some photos, you show evidence that this thing took place, you compile all of that into a little thing and you write a little cover sheet, and then you go down to the county recorder. You can't do it in a lot of the big cities because they're fucking, they've lost track of what America's all about, and they've become more commercialized because we're fucking losing it. This whole fucking country's going down the fucking tubes, right? But if you go to like these smaller counties, or like not the really big places like Los Angeles, you go outside of Los Angeles, you go to these counties, they'll record absolutely anything you want them to record. You take all that information, you get it recorded in the county recorder. You never went to these fucking people and asked them for anything. You told your public representatives, you told these people who work for you what's going on. You told them, I got married, here's the evidence, put it in your fucking book. Here's $50.
Yeah.
It's a completely different mentality. It's a completely different state of being. It's not about passports and cards and papers and horse shit and ink and fuck all that. It's about what's in your fucking mind. Where are you? Are you an American? Are you living in this foreign corporate world? Are you involved in commerce? Do you understand what you're signing? All the time you're signing shit. Do you understand what you're signing? You want to create like a revolutionary Hell's Angels biker gang in about 5 seconds? Get everyone on your fucking show reading their marriage licenses. There'll be more guns sold in the following 48 hours than like the entire history of Glock's entire fucking career, literally.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy, and it's all right there, dude. It's all right in front of your face.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure you got some people interested in doing this or researching it further. Should they go check out the Contract Killer course that you got there on your website, which is the best name ever, onestupidfuck.com?
Yeah. So the Contract Killer course was shot a while ago. So it's a little bit older, whatever, but it's really good. People love it. It's a series of videos for 39 days. It's free. And then I also have the State National Theory page, which is like a book. So I like to read, but a lot of people prefer audio visual, so I did both. So I have the State National Theory, which is the book version, which is more updated. It's more current because I can constantly update it.
Okay.
And then there's the free Contract Killer course, which is the audio visual presentation. Plus, I'm on tons of shows like this. I've got a whole podcast section on my website. I got shows all over the place, all over Spotify, Tinfoil Hat, like you said with Sam Tripoli. At the rate things are going, I'll probably be on Rogan in the next year. That's kind of how things are looking.
Nice.
So that's kind of all. There's a lot of information. I got a step-by-step guide section for people who are first starting out. A lot of information there, which is the first link on my website. I have a whole YouTube channel with a bunch of additional videos and shows that I do on my own podcast. And it's just a ton of stuff. It's just a ton. And it's a constantly evolving, constantly expanding, constantly, it's not like changing that much because it's like we realize a lot of like the basic skeletal structure, which is like you're two persons in law, one's a natural person, one's a business. The government deals with business activities and commerce. You're non-commerce, and then all the words associated to separate those two things. And then a lot of the words and terms that kind of lock us in that we don't know about. We've kind of already passed that point. So now we're into, more advanced stuff. Like, for example, the big hot thing right now that we're really focusing on is, like financials and the financial system, because just a super quick little blurb, you can see videos on this on my YouTube. Like, for example, the monetary system that we use is called Federal Reserve notes.
Yeah.
What you don't realize is the word note legally means promissory note, right? A promissory note is a security. So we don't actually have money, because if you look at Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution, it says no state shall make anything money except gold and silver coins. Gold and silver coins are money. Federal Reserve notes are actually securities or currency, right?
Yeah.
So what happens is you start to study how securities operate, and bro, it's like fucking totally crazy how securities operate. Every time you promise to pay anything, even like a mortgage agreement, the actual application itself, the actual application where you promise to pay the mortgage, when you sign that thing, that application becomes a security. And there's a certain way that you can actually sign it to where they have to actually go and get that security exchanged for Federal Reserve notes at the Federal Reserve and bring the full value of all those Federal Reserve notes right back to you. And then you place them on the account, and poof, the whole mortgage vanishes instantaneously.
Even if, is that something you have to do beforehand, or even if you've already signed a mortgage?
No, you don't need to be a national. You could be a U.S. citizen. You can do this shit. You can do it right now. You can go down to you can get a brand new RV tomorrow, sign the documents in a certain way. Now, not to say that the underwriter or the financial guy is not going to have an absolute fucking heart attack and totally freak out. A lot of times they say, oh, you signed the documents incorrectly. We need you to come down. Or, oh, we can't process your documents the way that you signed them. It's all bullshit, because once they accept the documents, once they actually physically take the documents from you, legally they cannot deny processing those documents. So it's not the easiest thing in the world. It's not like you can just go in and just sign shit. It's all good. Oh yeah, here's your card. Have a good day. They're gonna like suck you off and hand you a beer. It's not like that.
Yeah,
it's like there's more to it.
Sure.
But it is factual. You can actually literally go in. You can convert that application into a security, into a promissory note that's actually payable to you, and you can actually write instructions on the face of that security that to force the financial institution to go to what's called the Federal Reserve window, which is where they exchange these promissory notes, because they're going to go and they're going to exchange that promissory note anyways, whether you want it or not. What you're doing is you're releasing away that promissory note. They've already gotten paid on the full value of the note, and then now you're paying basically a second note. You're paying twice, and that's why anyone who has a mortgage, the mortgage company always offloads the mortgage in like 30 or 60 days, because they have a giant circle jerk. Or what they do is they've already gotten paid the full amount of the mortgage, and then within 30 days, they sell the second note at 70%. So they make 170% of the mortgage within 30 days. They just flip it over to their buddies, and then their buddies flip it over to the other buddies, and it's a whole circle jerk on the chain. But the thing is that when you learn how to convert these applications into securities and force them to process these securities as securities and bring you back the money on it, they're fucked. Because when you look up in the United States Code, if they don't do it, they can go to prison for up to 30 years. And I have videos on my YouTube. They're called Infinite Money videos that cover how all this works in great detail. So if somebody wants to know about that information, I have three videos on my YouTube channel. They're all about infinite money. And I describe exactly how to convert these applications and these promissory notes to be payable to you, rather than what you're doing. What you don't realize is you're basically releasing these securities with no condition. You're saying, I release these and you can do whatever you want with them. It's called a blank endorsement. But there's other types of endorsement, like a qualified endorsement, a full endorsement, a restrictive endorsement, a conditional endorsement. I teach you all about this in these videos. And what you're doing is, if you look in the Bill of Exchange Act, there's something called a holder, or holder in due course, or person entitled to enforce. There's a few different terms, right? These terms mean similar things. when you realize that when you hold the note, like when they give you the mortgage and they say sign here, you're actually the holder in that moment. So what happens is that a signature and an endorsement is basically the same thing. You can actually write instructions in the signature box. And what you write in the signature box is you write without recourse, pay to the order of my name in all capital letters, by, you sign there, and then below that you write Brandon Joe Williams / attorney in fact, or whatever you want to write. It's the same wording you see on a check, actually. Some of the same wording, like pay to the order of, is the same wording you're going to see on a check, right? So what you're doing is you're saying this promissory note is payable only and exclusively to me. You're basically writing check format on the front of the promissory note, and you're making the proceeds of the transfer of that note payable only and exclusively to you. So when they process the document and they get the money for the document, there's only one place that money can go, to you. And if it goes anywhere else, people are going to jail for decades.
That's crazy. And then once you get that paid off, how do you get the actual title there? You know, like, 'cause you're saying that you have to get, and that's when you go to the what was it, the Bureau of Land Management to get the.
The Bureau of Land Management is for land.
Oh, just
it's
for
not
land.
for.
Not for.
It's not even. I mean, technically, the BLM. It's not even for buildings. It's
okay.
just. It's literally for parcels of land. So whatever's on that parcel. So a land patent or a fee simple title from the BLM and that whole process, you're basically saying this land, I am entering into a trust with God on this land.
Okay.
And the county and all these private corporations in the District of Columbia, they can all go fuck themselves. They're out. It's just me and God now, boys. Okay. Now, anything that's on that land is essentially within that trust, so to speak. So the land is actually where the patent is, not the buildings.
Okay.
Now, to go back to your other question, the MCO and the MSO, we don't know entirely and completely on that end of the spectrum. Basically, as far as I can tell, you can kind of like make up your own manufacturer's certificate of origin. Like, for example, I've heavily modified my car. I've modified my motorcycle. Who's to say or who's to challenge that I'm not the manufacturer now? Fuck you.
Yeah,
I'm making a manufacturer's certificate of origin because I manufactured this car. Manufacture. What's the derivation of the word, of the term, of the section of that word? Manu. If you look up in a derivation dictionary, it means by the hands. I am the manufacturer. I took my hands, or paid someone to do some of the work, but I took my hands and I manufactured this vehicle by changing it and altering it and creating something new using my own labor. So we have, you know, you can put up your own MCO. You can call the DMV and say, hey, are you guys, you know, I'm done with you guys. It's over. Release my vehicle. And if they say no, then you can sue them for involuntary servitude, which is up to 30 years in prison. So there's involuntary servitude, peonage. These things are all covered in the United States Code. So you can go after them for a lot of fucking money, man. I mean, you can make like, I mean, I say this, why freak out about getting the DMV to release your vehicle when you ask once, they say no, and you sue the ever-loving fuck out of them and make like $20 million.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Because if you sue them, they're gonna fucking release the vehicle. Plus, you're gonna get paid. So again, a lot of right-leaning people, they're like, oh, we just want to be left alone. You know, oh, we just not to be like condescending or mean, but it's like I feel like on the right, the right needs to kind of like step up their game a little bit. It's like, no, it's like what we need is Big Daddy Hell's Angel motorcycle energy. We need people who are like calm. It's like, I call it daddy energy, right? You don't go, you know, to your kids and just beat them like half to death and like break their knees and shit like that. You know what I mean? But it's firm. You're very, very firm. You're like, listen, what you're doing is unacceptable. What you're doing is illegal. What you're doing is a criminal offense. It is a serious felony. And we are about to change the situation, not only for my own benefit, But because you're doing this to me, you're doing this to other people too. It ends now.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what's needed, and I feel like if the Republican Party or people who think in that kind of a way or whatever can kind of just they're not. I feel like the right's not very far from that. We're pretty close. The right's pretty close to that. It's just you just stretch it out just a teeny bit. That's where it's at. It's that strong, firm daddy energy. It's like this fucking ends. This fucking ends. This is bullshit. This is slavery.
Yeah. Now the problem is, right, is that there's you know, how much of that energy is really there? Like that, you know what I'm saying? Like, so many people are brainwashed, but then even when people start to wake up, they're like, I ain't going to be the one to be the first one to do it, to rock that boat. You know what I mean? Because, you know, it's a pretty daunting thing. It's like a whole change in paradigm of, you know, like however long you've been alive and, you know, you operated on a set of assumptions and you realize that whole world is fucking way wackier than you thought it was. You know what I mean? And now you have to step up and take these steps to take corrective actions or take your own power back or your own control back. How many people are going to do that? Like, I hope people do, you know what I mean? And I definitely want to look into it further.
It starts with a few, you know, everything starts with a few. I mean, all it takes is a few.
Yeah.
It doesn't require, I mean, I've been beating this fucking drum since, you know, I launched the first website March 14th of 2022. When I started out, there was less than 300, like 260 people a month were coming to the website. I mean, the first few months.
Yeah.
Now I've got 40,000 people coming to the website a month, and my email list is 25,000, and it's just like crazy. It's like, you know, my Instagram's blowing up, my Facebook is blowing up, everything. I'm on shows. I've been on probably 75 shows or 60 shows. I've lost count. So It's one of those things where, you know, this is crazy shit. This is like not, there's a lot of people who just jump right in. I wasn't one of those people. You know, I had a lady try to tell me about this shit for 2 fucking years. I said, you're fucking crazy. The CIA is going to come down in helicopters. Your skylights are going to get busted out. You know what I mean? Like, I thought for sure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Have you heard of anybody?
After 2 years, no one, you know, I was even shocked. I mean, when I first wrote my website, I was like, yo, you guys need to be careful with this shit. This is like living fucking fireworks. Yeah. And then I removed that like 5 months ago. I removed all that because I was like, you know what? I've seen a lot of stupid shit, man. People have sent a lot of stupid shit. We've had nothing, bro. Not the IRS is super easy to work with. The fucking police, they say, fuck this dude. We're not even going to fucking bother with this dude. The fucking Department of State, whatever. Cool. It's been like easy, dude. Super easy. We got lawyers. We had a lawyer the other day. I was laughing so fucking hard. We had this lawyer, and it was an eviction case, and the person who was the defendant, who was living in the apartment, did some like really stupid, simple shit from stuff that we teach. And the judge approved like a motion to dismiss the case. The case was thrown out, and the lawyer emailed the defendant and said, "Oh my God, they threw out the case. Would you mind if I reopened it?" Literally asked the defendant permission to reopen the case, and the defendant was like, "No." And we're all doing this. Like, no one has law degrees. Like, no one has any fucking legal experience, and we're just like running fucking circles around these lawyers, bro. Like the Tasmanian fucking devil.
Well, because it's all there in you know, in black and white. You know, like, and I know you refer to Black's Law a lot, and you know, for definitions and all kinds of stuff. It's all there. You know, like what can they do? Like, it's
all there. You just got to read it. And the poor bastards, these lawyers, they come out of school. They don't even know how to file a fucking motion or a complaint. Literally, I've had like 5 different lawyers tell me this.
Yeah.
I mean, we know the education system is broken, but we give certain things way too much credit. Like lawyers, like, oh, big bad lawyers, they're big fucking suits. It's like, dude, when you actually get in there and you talk to people and you start looking at this shit, whoa, it's just as bad as any other industry. You don't want to take your car anywhere because you're worried about your car getting fucking broken by some mechanic or getting fucked over. You're worried about going to the doctor because the doctor's going to fucking do all this weird ass shit. You're going to walk out of there in worse shape than you fucking came in. Law is no fucking different, dude. We live in a broken fucking world. Okay? It's this illusion that fucking law, all the lawyers are perfect and they all know the law and everybody's got it under control. Bro, they've got less under control and they understand this shit worse than any other industry for their own profession of what they're supposed to be responsible for.
Yeah, well, I think one problem is there's so much of it. You know what I mean? There's books and books and books and pages and pages. How can anyone, you know what I mean? Like, I obviously, if you specialize in one specific area or something, like, yeah, but like, there's so much law or so much code or so much whatever. It's how would you keep up with any of it? Like you have to do so much research in mining. It's crazy.
Yeah, and the thing is that I have focused on like the basic, like more underlying information, like where are the patterns? What is this all based off of? What's the history of this? How did this all come about? And it's like, once you get into it and you realize that it's like the commercial world and the non-commercial world, and you have the District of Columbia and not the District of Columbia, you realize there's the U.S. citizen and non-citizen national, there's the police and there's the sheriff. And you start to understand like the basic skeletal structure of how it all works. Now you can tear through a lot of the statutes and the codes with at 80 million miles an hour because you know what you're looking for. You've already got it in your mind.
Yeah.
It's like going fishing. You already know where the red snapper is. You're looking for a red snapper today. You already know it's over there in that corner. You're going straight to it. Fishing is like a 10-minute expedition.
Yeah.
So a lot of the more basic underlying information is where I focused, like the definitions of the words. People don't realize every single section of law everywhere, every single act, everything always starts with a definition section. What people don't realize is they can define any of that shit however they want.
Yeah. So
like, if you ask me, where do I spend most of my time and where do I spend most of my research time? In the definition sections. Because the definition, we just covered the definition of motor vehicle, the definition of use for commercial purposes, the definition of naturalization, the definition of United States. I've talked about no real law. We didn't cover any actual code.
True.
We just covered the definitions of a few terms, and your life has completely changed. The entire trajectory of the life of every single person who's listening to this that think that I could possibly, in some alternate fucking totally insane universe, maybe be telling the truth or be onto something. It's totally life-changing. We've only covered the definition of a handful of words and terms. That's all we did. We didn't talk about any law.
That's true. And I think just the basic understanding of the United States corporation versus, the independent states, like, that's not vast public knowledge. You know what I mean? Like that's, just people hearing that and then starting from there. And then as that starting point, like, and then you as a corporation with your name in all caps versus you as a human being, like that's not public, like, I don't know how widespread that knowledge is. And just using that as the starting point of the springboard to go, like that just shakes up the fucking world. You know what I mean? Like I'm not trying to overplay it, but it's bananas, dude. You know what I mean? Like, and no one knows it.
Yeah, it's totally crazy. They are hoping that you identify with a public corporation that they created. They created it. They control it. They created it. Thus, it's located in the District of Columbia. The Department of Health and Human Services is the department of the government that processed your long-form birth certificate when you were born. Usually the term that's used is local health officer. You can look on your long-form birth certificate, otherwise known as certificate of live birth. It's different than the normal birth certificate. It has oftentimes all of the original wet ink signatures for your parents, and also it has the wet ink signature of the local health officer right on the document. Certain states will not issue them to you, such as Pennsylvania. But basically, like I got mine from Indiana, right? It's one of the first things that I have people do when they're doing the free contract killer courses to go out and order copies of your certificate of live birth / long form birth certificate, or however you want to say it. On that form, there's a section, date registered or local registration date or date received by local health officer. That is the birthday of the person, which is a public corporation of your name in all capital letters that was opened as a sub-corporation of the Department of Health and Human Services.
Yeah. So you got 2 birthdays.
No, literally, you have 2 birthdays.
Yeah, yeah.
You're 2 persons. You're literally, I'm not even fucking kidding. If everyone would just think, you're literally 2 people or 2 persons. Yeah. Now, notice this. The Constitution says, we the people. You will never, ever, 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 ever see the word people used anywhere. They use the word persons.
Yeah.
You will never, ever, ever, ever see the word people used. Ever. They're not talking about people. They're talking about persons. It's all by design. It's so subtle. And when you start to see it, it is the craziest fucking thing you will ever fucking... It's like 90% of exiting the Matrix is just realizing where the doorway between the 2 locations is located.
Yeah.
It's not even how to open it. Literally, when you find the door, you don't. There is no like, how do I open it? Like you'll think that's easy.
Yeah.
It's just finding it.
Yeah. And
you find it. It's like there's firearms and there's arms. There's a U.S. citizen and there's a non-citizen national. There's fucking a state and a state. Capital S state is referring to a private for-profit corporation located in the District of Columbia. Lowercase state, when they don't capitalize it, they're referring to some sort of non-incorporated foreign zone, right?
Yeah.
Same word, the police and the sheriff. Same thing. Nope, totally different. It's like people and persons. Same thing. Nope, totally different. 2 different worlds.
Yeah. It's subtle, but huge.
Automobile versus motor vehicle have nothing to do with one another. 2 totally separate worlds.
Yeah. 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 And it's weird because that's what makes it cloudy, because those words are often interchanged, like just in general use, right, on the street, but they have vastly different meanings that people aren't aware of those different meanings.
Yep.
And
same thing with money versus currency.
Yeah.
You don't have money. If you don't have gold and silver coins, and I could go even further and you say, oh, I have a gold bar at home. I'll say, what's the definition of coin?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You'll say, does a bar a coin? Oh, well, and it ain't money.
Yeah.
Gold and silver coin. I have people ask me, what if it's like half gold, half silver? Okay, that's probably okay. But it's got to be a fucking coin. It says coin.
Yeah.
It's got to be a fucking coin. What is the definition of the word coin? You know what I mean? It's like a gold bar is not a coin.
Yeah.
So you got to think to yourself, like, you've really, really, really got to start looking at all of this and these terms and these words as like black magic. It's black magic because they use words and terms and definitions to get you to think a certain way, and then they control your behavior based off of that false definition or brainwashing through the definitions of terms, words, and phrases.
Yes.
That's the control mechanism.
Absolutely. Now, based on your research and insights into this, and this is just a weird question, and we might not know the answer, but is it your gut feeling? Was this by design, or was this something that was made one way for one intention and has just been taken advantage of through the years?
It's a combination of both, I think.
Okay.
I feel that when the public corporations of our names in all capital letters were created, I feel like that was actually a good thing, and then it kind of got like hijacked. And the reason why is because, let's say, for example, you're the CFO of Starbucks, and somebody gets molested in one of your stores. The FBI is not going to come and break down your door as a CFO and take you to jail because you have limited liability. A commercial entity such as your name in all capital letters, or otherwise known as the Ens Legis or public corporation. That corporation, which is located in the District of Columbia, is a portal that allows you to operate in the commercial world, right? The literal definition of the term public corporation, if you look up the term corporation, just the normal word corporation in Black's Law Dictionary, there's a section in that definition, which is like 6 pages long, and it talks about public corporation. And the definition, I have it right here, a public corporation is one created by the state for political purposes and to act as an agency in the administration of civil government. What's the definition of civil government? It's a commercial activity. It has to be by definition. So if we were to reread that now, with that in mind, a public corporation is one created by the state for political purposes and to act as an agency in the administration of commercial activity in between people and the government. So what is the public corporation? The public corporation is a portal or a middle space. What is that public corporation gives you? It gives you limited liability in commerce. You place that person up in front, up ahead of you, and you say, "I'm here on behalf of that person." It's not me. I'm a totally different person. I'm just a lawyer. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're just a lawyer on behalf of the public corporation. Yeah. You get limited liability. So you get diplomatic immunity being a non-citizen national. You get commercial limited liability by operating your public corporation. It's like, if you start looking at it in that light, you're like, well, fuck, this is actually pretty cool. I'm actually kind of liking this system.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean...
When you operate and you understand how this works and you start to operate, you don't need any fucking money, bro. All you got to do is just understand it. You become a literal fucking god. You become untouchable.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it sounds like, I mean, from what you've said, and I haven't looked into it further than this, but like, there's nothing really that you're giving up, right? Like there's no because your people say like, oh, if I become a non-citizen national, what am I giving up? The thing is that you're actually splitting into two persons. The public corporation is a U.S. citizen, and you can actually literally look up the definition of U.S. citizen, and it will tell you corporations, associations, trusts can all be U.S. citizens. Yeah.
Because corporations, trusts, and associations are all considered persons or legal fictions in the law. They're actually literally human beings in the law. Like, for example, you see like State of Missouri versus John Doe. State of Missouri is a person.
Yeah.
And they'll start off the lawsuit, and you can read the lawsuit documents, and they'll start off and they'll talk about jurisdiction, and a lot of them will even say like, State of Minnesota is considered a person as per the definition of person from blah, blah, blah. They'll say that right at the beginning of the fucking lawsuit. So you're not losing anything because that public corporation, which is a U.S. citizen, is just going to sit right there, but it's over there now. It's not you anymore.
Yeah. You're not dissolving.
You're identifying. The problem is you're identifying with an entity that is foreign to you. That entity, it's like this. They can't touch you when you're walking down the street, but they can touch you when you're in your car. So they trick you into getting in your car and driving your car all the time and never walking anywhere. It's the same fucking thing. Literally, that's exactly what it is. You're entering their car, and now they can get you. You're not that thing. It's a completely... You didn't even fucking create it. They created it.
Yeah.
It's called a constructive trust. You can look up the term... what is a constructive trust? Term constructive trust in law is like, if I fucking created a trust of your name in all capital letters, and I went off and I could do all sorts of crazy shit. I could fucking start getting unemployment checks mailed to my house. I can go and cash them. I can deposit them in a trust account because the trust is Brandon Joe Williams Trust. I don't need any approval from anyone to create that. And if it says Brandon Joe Williams on the checks, you deposit into Brandon Joe Williams Trust, it'll clear.
Yeah. It's crazy.
So you go to the bank and you open up personal accounts, quote unquote, of your name in all capital letters. Those aren't personal accounts; those are business accounts, and the business is owned by the District of Columbia, and it's located in the District of Columbia, which is how if the IRS or the EDD or anybody else gets ever so slightly pissed off at you, what do? They dip into what you think is your account. It's not your fucking account; it's their fucking account. But Brandon Joe Williams Trust, I fucking created it. My buddy was the grantor. It's not their account. It's my account.
Yeah.
And what's even cooler than that is a trust. The way a trust is established is the trustee doesn't actually own what's in the trust. The assets are considered separate from the beneficiary and the trustee. The trustee administers the assets, and the beneficiary benefits from the assets, but neither party actually owns what's in the trust. It's almost as if basically like the way I think of it in my head is God owns what's in the trust. The trustee is administering God's stuff, and the beneficiary is benefiting from the activities of God's assets. Because think about this. You got your motorcycle, you've got some fucking promissory note, fucking securities in the bank, whatever. When you die, where does it go?
Yeah.
Back to God. You are renting everything. You're renting everything. You ain't gonna keep that shit for more than 80 years maximum. So it's like I think of it this way: like the trust law is true law because it's like you don't own shit. I mean, you're temporarily leasing whatever it is that you have or own, you know,
yeah.
and through the trust, that's how it works. You are temporarily leasing God's stuff, and the trustee administers God's stuff, and the beneficiary is benefiting from God's stuff. You can't sue the trustee unless there's illegal activity going on in the trust. He doesn't own any of it.
Yeah.
Neither does the beneficiary. So not only is the trust not owned or controlled by the government at all, or created by the government, but they can't get into the goddamn thing because nobody fucking owns anything in it. So people are running around talking about fucking asset protection, doing all this fucking dumbass shit. You don't need offshore accounts. Oh my God, all this shit. It's all fucking dumb, man. You just need a few trusts. You don't even need like a whole. Some people are like, oh, you need like 37 trusts, and like one has to go over here. And yeah. He's like, fuck, you don't need any of that, dude. You don't need any. You just need to understand the basics of trusts. Create a couple, you know, like one for each of your companies, maybe, or like one extra one for your personal stuff. It's like not even that important. Even just having one will change your life, and you just put everything in there, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't own any of it. You don't own any of it. You control it.
Yeah.
You don't own any of it.
Yeah.
And you even have guys like fucking, what's his name? The guy who's always talking shit on the internet. Kind of like Milano colored guy with a bald head. His brother's Tristan or whatever. They got arrested in Romania recently.
Oh,
Andrew Tate.
Yeah.
He even says that. He's like, own nothing, control everything. And you've heard that before from like billionaires and shit. You know, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about own nothing, control everything. That's a trust. That's the definition of a trust. That is the literal. You can't get that from a corporation. You can't get that from an S corp. You can't get that from a C corp. You can't get that from an LLC. You can't get that from a sole proprietorship. And your name in all capital letters is a fucking sole proprietorship.
Yeah, man, it's deep. It's deep. And it like you said, though, like once you start thinking about it, you know, it's there's a lot. It's like, it's, you know, taking it all in right now, it's very overwhelming, but there's also a clear path once you, I think, start on it, right? Like it seems like things start clicking, making sense.
Well, I get into it. I go pretty hard on a lot of these shows because it's like, I feel like I've experienced enough of these shows to realize that these shows are filled with patriotic-minded people with big hearts and big minds, and they're usually smart as fuck. Especially these long-form shows where you guys get into some stuff, and it's like 2 hours long and this and that. Like I'm telling you, and I'm not even saying this like toot my own horn. This is just like a fact. It like blew my mind. Almost every show I'm on is like literally the highest performing show. Some of these shows are like 10, 12 years old. I was on the Free Thought Project, which literally goes all the way back to like my childhood, like 2003.
Yeah.
He literally said, at the beginning of the Free Thought Project, you can go on there, you can listen. I was on the show. He's like, we've had a lot of people over the years. The past 20 years, we've had all these fucking sovereign citizens. They're all over our website. They're always fucking up. They look like shit. Like, I didn't, basically, like, they rescheduled me like 3 or 4 times. They didn't even want me to come on the show that much, but we were persistent. By the beginning of the show, he was kind of like, I don't know about all this. Like, this is all kind of like, I think this is all kind of bullshit. I've been seeing people do this for 20 years, fuck it all up, and then get all fucking beat up and arrested and all this. By the end of the show, he literally says in the show, on the recording, I think this might be one of the most influential, powerful shows we've ever done in 20 years.
Yeah. What I keep thinking of is, and I know you're busy and stuff, but like definitely would like to have you back when I do go to video format, because I think there's a lot of stuff that it would have been good if we could have pulled up and showed people, you know what I mean? Just for their own, just in case someone doesn't pull it up later on their own, like here, dude, it's right there. Look at it. You know what I mean? Like what more evidence do you need? You know what I mean? Like sometimes people need to see things in black and white, and, the world's crazy. Everyone's busy, and like, I don't want people to forget about this stuff. Like, you know what I mean? So definitely, I'd love to have you on again and keep this going, man, because it's very interesting and important stuff. Like, and even if someone doesn't do all of it, like it's important to start thinking this way and realizing, the world around you is a lot different than you think it was,
Oh yeah. And there's a, even just, I always tell people the same thing. Like, for example, with bills, right? Everyone's overwhelmed by bills. They don't know how they're going to handle their bills. They're scared. They're scared mainly. The true point of terror, because I talk to people all the time. I used to be a therapist, so it's like, the true point of terror is my family, right? So it's like people are scared to death of their bills in relation to their family, right? Yeah. Just knowing that some of this information might be true, just knowing that the word bill actually means bill of exchange. That's the actual technical legal term for bill, is bill of exchange. And then going and researching what is a bill of exchange. Even just realizing, hey, this crazy fucking dude who makes himself a human pickle and he's dressed up in a Borat mankini and he calls himself one stupid fuck, he's obviously fucking office rocker. But if even like 5% of what he's saying could possibly be true, it's sort of like, it's like a pressure valve. And it brings that pressure down like 25%. Just that little bit, just that little hope, just that spark that maybe possibly this fucking psychopath could be onto something. So like there's all these different levels. You know what I mean? There's like that level, which is like still totally life changing. And then there's all the way up to, fuck this, I'm going after American Express and I'm suing them for $100 million and I'm going to force them to give me a black card with no limit. And it's going to set off every month and I'm never going to have to pay for it ever again, which is kind of like the upper level of what we're trying to do right now. Yeah. So it's a whole spectrum. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We didn't even talk about like that stuff, like the credit stuff, but yeah, I mean, everyone go check out, you know what I mean? Check out onestupidfuck.com. And like you said, state-national-theory is the online, like the book version, and the course, the videos is Contract Killer course. And I've kind of perused your site a little bit. There's a ton of stuff on there. It's easy to kind of get lost, but like where you suggest people start at one of those two spots, or is there someplace else where they should start?
The Contract Killer course. The Contract Killer course is like, I do a lot of singing, I do jokes, I'm looking up definitions in kind of like a sloppy, haphazard way. It's very like Sesame Street version of a lot of this. On the shows, I tend to be like boom, 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 like more focused, intense, delivering value, like boom, like that's kind of like more my. But on the course, it's like it's like if we're going in 6th gear here, it's like 1st gear.
Okay.
On the course.
So so
it's like the course is probably the easiest one. The state national theory, if you like to read and you want to read and you want to go a little faster and you don't want to wait day by day for all the course videos, but the course videos come one per day for 39 days.
Okay.
And I'm like cracking jokes and telling stories and like fucking, it's like it's goofy. It's super goofy.
How long are the videos?
It's in total, the Contract Killer course is probably somewhere around like 24 hours of video total.
Okay. So they're anywhere from like 30 minutes to an hour or something
Something like that. Yeah. 30 to 60 minutes per video, something like that. And then you average it all out. It's about 22 or 24 hours of video.
Okay.
And then there's the advanced course, which is free as well, which you'll get invited to at the end of the Contact Killer course, that has a few videos, and I'm just kind of like making those as we go along. And then there's all the podcasts, and then there's all the shows. We do a lot of like current right now. What are we researching? What are the breakthroughs? We do a lot of shows about that. Most of the shows are with a buddy of mine named Joe Lustica. That's all on my YouTube channel. That's all like what's the brand new crazy series? What's the craziest like right now shit that's going on, or what's like the recent stuff that you kind of realize? It's like the hotbed research show. We don't do a lot of those, but we do them sometimes.
Okay. And so, tell people where they can find you. onestupidfuck.com is your website. What's like your YouTube channel or your social media stuff?
It's all there. All the links to all my shit everywhere is all on onestupidfuck.com. Everything's there. Literally everything.
Okay. And I'll put that stuff, obviously, I'll put that in the show notes for people. So if you're driving and listening to this, you can go later and click on it and continue the journey from there, But Brandon, I know we're going on like 2 hours and 20 minutes. I know you probably got a lot going on. I appreciate the time today. Would love to continue the conversation sometime, especially if I do incorporate the video element and we can show people stuff. Yeah, man, appreciate it, dude.
If you guys, if you want to talk about something specific, or if your audience wants to hear about something specific and you want to have me back even on audio format, be happy to. I'm thrilled. Thank you so much for having me on the show. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Hold on one second. I'm not hanging up. I'm just shutting the recorder off here. Hold on one second.